Lawmakers have just 1 week to come to an agreement on government funding, but are both sides of the aisle close to making that agreement happen? The March 14th deadline comes as Congress is caught up in debating President Donald Trump's budget priorities. For now, a continuing resolution would keep top-line spending at their current levels, which in effect is a cut due to increased costs and changing needs. Republicans say now is not the time for a fiscal fight.
Don't stop a momentum that is so great right now with what Doge is doing, what he's uncovering. Don't stop it now. He doesn't want to have to deal with a shutdown and who's to blame. He wants to move forward with his programs, move forward with his agenda.
But Democrats say that the president's ability to control funding and use it as political leverage is a poison pill for them.
A year-long continuing resolution is inconsistent with the Bipartisan Fiscal Responsibility Act. And so if Republicans decide to take this approach, as Speaker Johnson indicated, it's his expectation that Republicans are going it alone.
Republicans control 53 seats in the Senate, but 60 votes are required to move funding measures forward. The House is expected to take its first floor vote Tuesday. Republicans hold a razor-thin majority in that chamber. Both chambers have that March 14th deadline.